From my last video, my comment section has looked exactly like this. In my last video, I looked at network traffic on a fresh Alpine Linux install and flagged a bunch of background connections as potential telemetry. And you know what? You guys were right. I misidentified standard network time protocol NTP and DHCP requests as data phoning home. I'm admitting it. I got it wrong. There is a massive difference between operational network functions and telemetry. Operational data is essential. Your OS needs DHCP to get an IP address. It needs NTP so your system clock isn't stuck in 1970. Telemetry is entirely different. Telemetry is data collected about how you use a product, packaged up and sent back to the software publisher. Let me be absolutely clear. Alpine Linux itself has a flawless record. It is completely clean. Nobody has ever caught the Alpine development team sneaking telemetry into the base OS ever. It is designed from the ground up to be minimalist, secure, and private. Alpine didn't lie to you, but the software you install on top of it might be a completely different story. Here's what nobody told you. When you run a minimalist distro, you trust the upstream maintainers to keep it clean. But Alpine is a favorite for developers, especially people deploying containerized apps. And one of the biggest frameworks run on Alpine today is Microsoft's .NET runtime. Here's something nobody talks about. Every time Microsoft releases a new version of .NET, Alpine maintainers have to manually patch the source code just to strip out hard-coded telemetry. If that patch isn't there, .NET silently phones home to Microsoft, tracking your build environment without asking, on a distro that's supposed to send 0 bytes. Let me show you. Let's test it. Let's see what happens if that patch fails, or if you pull an unpatched binary straight from Microsoft onto your secure Linux box. Alright, we are in a completely fresh Alpine environment. Let's start the Wireshark capture. Notice that right now, it's dead quiet, just the occasional background broadcast. I'm SSH'd into Alpine from my Windows machine right now. Terminal on the left, Wireshark on the right. And look at Wireshark. Nothing. Completely flat. This machine is sitting on the internet and sending absolutely 0 traffic. Now I'm going straight to Microsoft's servers, not Alpine's package manager, not the community version, Microsoft's own install script, pulled directly from their domain. You can see it downloading right now. .NET SDK 10.0.301, straight from builds.net.microsoft.com. Watch the right side of your screen. And then this happened. The very first command I ran, Microsoft told me themselves, didn't wait for me to go digging, didn't hide it in a config file somewhere, right there in the terminal output. The .NET tools collect usage data in order to help us improve your experience. It is collected by Microsoft and shared with the community. Just sitting there in the welcome message that most developers read for half a second before they start coding. Telemetry is on by default. No checkbox, no pop-up, no opt-in screen. Just a quiet announcement in a wall of text that you're already being tracked on a machine that was sending 0 bytes 5 minutes ago. Now, they do tell you there's an opt-out. One environment variable and telemetry is disabled, but that opt-out is buried in a welcome message that flashes for 2 seconds the first time you run a command. Most developers are already typing their next line before they finish reading it. Telemetry is on by default. You have to know it exists to turn it off, on a machine that was sending 0 bytes before I installed anything. But here's where it gets interesting. Even with Microsoft's unpatched binary sitting on this machine, even with telemetry announced as enabled, even with CLI commands running that Microsoft's own documentation says trigger data collection, nothing left this machine. My Wireshark capture stayed completely dead. And the reason comes down to the very foundation of what Alpine is built on. Most Linux distros use glibc, the GNU-C library. It's the industry standard. It's what almost all mainstream software is compiled against, including Microsoft's .NET Core. But because Alpine doesn't include glibc, I had to drop in a tiny compatibility layer called gcompat just to get the program to execute. But there's a massive catch. Alpine natively uses Musel libc, a completely different hyper-minimal C library implementation. While gcompat translates basic commands well enough to let the program boot, Microsoft's massive tracking and telemetry pipeline expects a heavy, traditional GNU environment. The moment that telemetry engine tries to spin up its background threads and phone home, it expects glib structures that simply do not exist. Add to that, Alpine has no system. There is no massive background service manager running the kinds of daemons that corporate software expects to find. No standard GNU core utilities, just BusyBox, OpenRC, and the absolute bare minimum needed to run a system. The telemetry engine had nowhere to go, not because Alpine blocked it with a strict firewall rule, not because a privacy setting was toggled, but because Alpine's entire architecture is so radically hostile to bloat that the surveillance code literally broke on contact. This is why the distro you choose matters more than any privacy setting you can toggle. Windows gives you a privacy settings page with dozens of toggles. Ubuntu gives you a telemetry opt-out checkbox during installation. Most operating systems frame privacy as something you have to manually configure. Alpine doesn't configure privacy. Alpine is privacy. At the architecture level, at the library level, at every single layer of the stack. When a multi-billion-dollar company's tracking tool, with telemetry hard-coded into the binary, cannot physically figure out how to phone home on your machine. That's not a privacy setting. That's a foundation. If you saw my last Alpine video, the one where I mislabeled NTP traffic as telemetry, you might have noticed I took it down. I don't want misleading or inaccurate data sitting on this channel, but I promised to follow up, so I went back to the drawing board. I dug deeper, and what I found this time wasn't even what I expected. Alpine didn't just defend itself against Microsoft, it didn't even have to try. Its sheer minimalism was the defense. Subscribe if you want to see more bare metal, accurate audits like this. Drop a comment telling me what distro or browser I should test next.